And you were national level gymnast?
Yeah,
And you're 5'7".
I am. Yeah. So I grew, it's a funny story. I grew when I quit. So when I was 22, I shot up growth spurt after. Because everyone's like, oh, you're really tall. But yeah.
Yeah, because when I was doing the research, I was like, she's really tall for a gymnast.
Yeah, I was stunted, I think.
So how tall are you when you did gymnastics?
Oh, I don't even know. I was still tall for a gymnast, probably like 5'3"-ish, which is still like, if you're over 5 feet, you're like, okay, you're a bit of a giant, but
Yeah. So a 4-inch growth spurt after
yeah.
at 22, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Would you attribute that to like maybe some nutrition issues and things? Were you sort of forced to keep your weight down? Were you getting your period, like all that kind of normal stuff? Or
Yeah, a little bit. Like I wouldn't say, well, I wouldn't say I had an eating disorder. Maybe I'm denial, but you're right. Like a lot of the coaches, especially when we go travel, it was very like, I remember like sneaking out to the vending machine and try like, cause they were all like, don't eat too much because you're going to be too heavy. You're not going to be able to flip around kind of thing. No sugar, no fat. I remember they used to say that. So yeah, probably a little bit. I definitely didn't eat enough. I know that for a fact. For training 5 hours a day, every day, definitely wasn't eating. I'm not eating enough. And again, like, yeah, no period. Like I say, 22, that's when that came to.
yeah. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. I grew up as a ballerina, so it's similar experience with the food and, no periods or irregular periods and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Same thing.
So I have to ask, we just went through COVID. You were on the front lines of that, working in a hospital with all of that happening. What kind of precautions did you have to go through to be able to do your job?
Just wearing the PPE. So gowning up, goggles, face shields, N95s, gloves, a lot more sanitizing and washing everything in between patients. That's all you really can do. I mean, now we have our vaccine, so we're a little bit more comfortable, I guess you could say. But yeah, before that, I was just like, ooh.
And you kind of got to see the effects firsthand. Mm-hmm. Because of what you do, and that there's like CT scans and X-rays, you could actually see inside the people's lungs that were being affected by COVID. And what was that experience like?
Yeah, crazy. You hear, okay, this patient's COVID positive, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, here we go. And then I work more in CT now, so I get the really sick patients. Yeah, and you can just see it all over the lungs, like just like crap. Just all, and you can really tell, like, ooh, that's a COVID lung.
And the whole time you're training and trying to stay fit, and you're seeing all this going around you, and you're seeing the effects. How did that affect you mentally?
It didn't affect my training at all, but there was a couple of times I was like, okay, if I get this, because there were a couple nurses at our hospital, like medical professionals get it too, right? Like there's nobody's immune. I just thought, man, if I think that would sideline me for probably the year. Like when you think of recovery and then trying to return as an elite athlete, like they still don't know the lasting effects, right? So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you retired from gymnastics at 22. Mm-hmm. It was a couple years before you found CrossFit. Now that you're in the sport, do you wish you would have found it sooner? Because you kind of got a later start than most athletes.
Yeah, definitely. Like looking at the teenagers now, like the girls that are doing it, they're 17, like Emma Carey, she's going to be 17 this year. Yeah. And I'm like, man, if I did it at that age, like, yeah, that would be super cool. But I think there's something to be said of a lot of us were elite gymnasts, and the base that we built, I think that is helpful. My dad was an Olympic lifting coach, so I learned to lift when I was like 10.
Oh, wow.
So kind of I had the building blocks at that age. I just wasn't doing full out CrossFit. I think that helped. And
you went in 19 and you did make a splash because you actually won an event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Ruck Run, the dreaded Ruck Run.
Yeah. Well, we only had 20 minutes to dread it from the time it was so Wasn't that bad. I knew I would. I've always been a good runner. I was the kid that won all those cross country runs in elementary, and so I knew I'd do well. But I knew like Sam Briggs, Kristen Holt, like I knew they would be up there too because they're engine athletes. And I did think the bag would have dragged me down more than it did. Honestly, like each time we loaded the weight, because it went from 20 pounds, 30, 40, 50 each lap, kilometer and a half lap, I think it was. Didn't really feel, maybe I was just so in the zone, such adrenaline rush, I didn't even feel it get heavier. Like just load it up, okay, go. Like it wasn't like the 50 was like, oh man, now we're really, it was like, felt the same every single time.
I think the best part of that, watching that as a spectator, was how fast everybody tried to get the ruck off after they finished past the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then didn't you have to, weren't you supposed to like keep track of your ruck so they could examine it after? And there were just piles of them everywhere.
That was, and then, like Matt Fraser's fell out. Like, so I don't know if his bag was short at the end. Like, I don't remember what lap that was, but of course I threw mine off like, woohoo, I won. Like, they're like, oh, you have to stick around for the interview. So I stayed there. Who knows where my bag went. So at the end, I just picked up another one and then they're checking them. And I was like, oh man, like, wouldn't that be,
yeah.
Oh, you're missing a bag. Like, luckily it was fine. But yeah, so I've learned next time when they tell you, keep an eye on your own bag.
Yeah.
You do that.
Did you suffer any kind of a rash on your back from the bag like everybody else did?
Yep. So those 2 marks right on the lower back. I think I still have a little bit of trophy scars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the most painful
unpleasant.
shower I've had in my life. That was awful.
And I think that was a very unintended, consequence of that workout. I don't think it was thought out too much. Those bags, those rucks are not made to hold little tiny things.
Yeah, thumping against your back. I mean, during the run, of course, I felt nothing.
Sure.
I did have an ice bath after. They have those giant bins, so I don't know what kind of bacteria was getting in there then.
Right.
But yeah, it was painful to clean it out for sure. Worth it though.
Yeah.
Well,
So
awesome.
where do you have the trophy?
It's still packed up in a box. It was on display, but then we moved it. I don't know where half the things are now.
Yeah. Will it go in the garage gym now?
That's a good idea. Yeah, good idea. Let's put it in there.
Little motivation.